Nothing satisfies you anymore. Not your phone, not food, not entertainment, not even achievements. You scroll endlessly, but feel nothing. You watch videos while bored, eat without tasting, rest without recovering. And the strange part is, your life may actually be more comfortable than ever. So why does everything feel flatter? Because your brain has been overstimulated for so long, it has forgotten how to enjoy normal life. This is not a mood problem. This is not depression in the traditional sense. This is dopamine desensitization. And if you do not understand how it works, you will spend years chasing stimulation that never satisfies, while the capacity for simple joy quietly disappears. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It is not. Dopamine is the seeking chemical. It is the system that says, go find more novelty, more stimulation, more reward. Dopamine does not make you feel good when you get something. It makes you want to get something. It creates anticipation, craving, motivation. The actual pleasure, the satisfaction when you receive something, comes from different systems: endorphins, serotonin, opioid receptors. But dopamine is the engine that drives the search. And modern life has turned that engine into a machine that never stops running. Your phone, your notifications, your processed food, your endless scrolling, your short-form content, all of it is competing for one thing: your dopamine system. Here is what your brain actually learns from this. The more intensely you stimulate your brain, the less sensitive it becomes. This is called downregulation. Your brain has dopamine receptors, little docking stations where dopamine lands and creates the signal that says this matters, pay attention, keep going. When dopamine floods the system repeatedly, your brain protects itself by reducing the number of receptors or making them less responsive. At first, one video is exciting, one dessert feels amazing, one notification feels rewarding. But repeated stimulation changes the baseline. Your brain adapts to the new level of intensity. It becomes the expected normal. And eventually, ordinary life no longer produces enough stimulation to feel rewarding. Sunlight feels boring, silence feels unbearable, reading feels slow, walking feels empty. Not because those things changed, because you changed. Here is where it gets worse. When your baseline shifts upward, you need more stimulation just to feel okay. Not good, okay. The things that once made you happy now barely register, so you increase the intensity. More scrolling, more sugar, more noise, more novelty. But the stronger the stimulation becomes, the weaker your response becomes. Your brain keeps adapting. The receptors keep downregulating. It is a terrible trade. You keep consuming, but stop enjoying. You crave stimulation constantly, yet satisfaction never arrives. And most people never realize it is happening. They assume they need more: better content, better food, better experiences. But the problem is not the quality of stimulation. The problem is the capacity to receive it. This is why modern people struggle with stillness. Silence feels uncomfortable. Doing one task feels impossible. Being alone with your thoughts feels painful. Not because your mind is broken, but because your brain has been conditioned to expect constant dopamine spikes. Your nervous system now experiences normal life as understimulating, so it keeps searching. Refresh, scroll, click, consume, again and again and again. The behavior looks like distraction or laziness, but it is actually dependency. Your brain has learned that stimulation is always available. It expects the next hit within seconds, and when the hit does not come, it panics. This is why you reach for your phone without thinking, why you open apps you just closed, why you cannot sit through a meal without looking at a screen. Your dopamine system has been trained to seek constantly, and it does not know how to stop. Now let us talk about what happens in the brain when you remove the stimulation. Centuries ago, people discovered something strange. When intense stimulation disappears, the brain eventually becomes sensitive again. This is what underlies every fasting tradition, every silent retreat, every deliberate period of simplicity. At first, deprivation feels terrible. Your brain panics because it has become dependent on high stimulation. But if you remove the constant hits long enough, something unexpected happens. The receptors upregulate, the baseline resets, and suddenly, simple things start feeling good again. The first few days are the hardest. Your brain screams for stimulation. You feel restless, irritable, bored, flat. This is withdrawal. not from drugs necessarily, but from overstimulation itself. Most people never make it past this phase because they mistake discomfort for failure. They feel the flatness and think it means something is wrong, but the discomfort is actually evidence that your brain is recalibrating. The receptors are rebuilding, the sensitivity is returning. You just have to wait. And this is the part most people never realize. Then, slowly, your sensitivity returns. Food tastes stronger, music feels deeper, nature becomes calming again. You start noticing things you stopped noticing years ago. Morning light, cold water, quiet, movement, conversation. Not because those things suddenly improved, but because your brain can finally register them again. The signal that was too weak to notice before is now strong enough to produce genuine response. This is the strange paradox modern culture ignores. The more stimulation you consume, the less pleasure you feel. But the simpler your baseline becomes, the more enjoyable ordinary life becomes. Think about it this way. A person constantly consuming intensity needs massive stimulation just to feel normal. They watch a video, it is okay. They eat a meal, it is fine. They experience something beautiful, it barely registers. Their system is so desensitized that only extreme spikes break through. But a person living simply, someone whose baseline is low and stable, can experience genuine pleasure from almost anything. A walk, a meal, a deep breath, a quiet room. Sensitivity creates richness, not excess. This is why people return from retreats, fasts, or digital detoxes feeling strangely alive. Nothing external changed, but their capacity to feel changed. There is another thing modern life removed: waiting. Everything is instant now: food, entertainment, validation, stimulation. But anticipation is part of pleasure. Here is what most people do not understand. Dopamine rises during the wanting phase, the anticipation, the waiting, the building toward the reward. When you delay gratification, dopamine stays elevated longer, the wanting becomes meaningful, and the eventual experience feels stronger. But when every desire is fulfilled immediately, your brain loses the ability to sustain motivation. The dopamine spike is instant and shallow, then it crashes. Quick hit, quick drop, again and again. There is no build-up, no anticipation, no depth to the experience. The pleasure becomes hollow because the waiting was removed. The dangerous part is this: you can become so overstimulated that peace starts feeling like emptiness. Stillness feels wrong. Simplicity feels boring. And your brain loses the ability to rest without stimulation. That is not freedom. That is dependency. Your nervous system has been trained to require constant input. Without it, you feel uncomfortable, not because anything is wrong, but because silence has become unfamiliar. This is why people cannot fall asleep without a screen, cannot eat without a video, cannot walk without a podcast. They are not choosing stimulation. They are avoiding the discomfort of its absence. So how do you reverse it? Not through motivation, through reduction, less noise, less stimulation, less intensity. You stop flooding the system. Here is what this looks like practically. Reduce high dopamine inputs: social media, short-form video, processed food, constant notifications. These are the biggest drivers of desensitization. You do not have to eliminate them forever, but you have to reduce them long enough for your brain to recalibrate. Introduce periods of deliberate boredom. Let yourself sit without stimulation, walk without a podcast, eat without a screen. This feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is the recalibration happening. Delay gratification intentionally. Wait before you eat the thing you want. Wait before you check the notification. Let the wanting build. This retrains your dopamine system to sustain motivation rather than spike and crash. Prioritize analog experiences, books over videos, conversations over scrolling, nature over screens. These lower stimulation inputs feel boring at first, but that is only because your baseline is too high. As it drops, they become satisfying again. At first, life feels dull. This is the hardest part, the valley between overstimulation and recovery. You have removed the intense inputs, but your brain has not recalibrated yet, so everything feels flat. Most people quit here. They assume the simplicity is the problem. But the flatness is temporary. The desensitization is the problem, and you are fixing it. Then the nervous system recalibrates, and eventually, ordinary life becomes vivid again. Colors seem brighter, food tastes richer, conversations feel more meaningful, silence becomes comfortable. Not because anything external changed, because you changed. Most people think pleasure comes from adding more entertainment, more comfort, more stimulation. But often, pleasure returns when you remove things, because your brain was never designed for endless dopamine spikes. It was designed for contrast, effort and reward, silence and sound, hunger and satisfaction, waiting and fulfillment. Modern life erased the contrast, and your brain stopped responding. You are not incapable of joy. Your dopamine system is exhausted. And the frightening part is, the modern world profits from keeping it that way. Every app, every platform, every product is engineered to maximize dopamine response, to keep you seeking, to keep you consuming, to keep you dependent. They are not selling satisfaction. They are selling craving. And the more you consume, the more you need. But your brain can recover. Your sensitivity can return. And when it does, you realize something strange. The simple life you once called boring was actually what your nervous system needed all along. Your body is always adapting. Every scroll, every notification, every instant gratification is a signal. And your brain responds by adjusting what feels normal. Right now, your normal might require constant stimulation, but that normal was trained. It can be retrained. Reduce the noise, embrace the boredom, let the discomfort pass. And on the other side, you will find something unexpected. A life where simple things feel rich again, where satisfaction does not require intensity, where your nervous system finally rests. Your dopamine system learned to need more. It can learn to need less. The question is not whether your brain will adapt. The question is what you will teach it starting today.